it's hard to believe, but the MLS season is about to begin. And barring any CBA agreement negotiation that did not go well and that we probably will have to start the season a little bit late because of that, the season is going to be starting in about 3 weeks from now, and I think this is probably the time where I begin talk about stuff that involves of the upcoming season, and I will start doing that with talking about the 10 MLS team that I am looking forward to see this season. And also I will be start doing previews for each team in MLS heading into the upcoming season. And I think I'll start doing that either on Thursday and Friday because I have to do a video for all 24, or not 24, 26 teams in MLS, and I only have 25 days to do all that, so I'm gonna have to do like a team per video, although I know that there's gonna be a couple of days that I will not be able to do a video, so I might have some day where I have to do 2 or 3 teams that have to preview for their upcoming season. But it's that time of the year again where preseason is in full swing in MLS, and that we are getting very close to the beginning of the season. But first of all, we're going to look at the 10 MLS team I'm looking forward to see this season. And by the way, this is in no particular order, even though I kind of put that like it's a ranking. And I also want to say that to make it fair, I'm going to choose 5 teams in the Eastern Conference and 5 teams in the Western Conference that I'm looking forward to. And I will exclude Minnesota United and San Jose Earthquakes in this ranking because there are the 2 teams that I, of course, support, even though technically I am not looking forward to the Quakes this season because this offseason for the Quakes have left a lot for me to desire that, it really kind of left me a lot to wonder, are they actually going to be better than last season when they basically kept the same team from last season? But that's another discussion for another day. Now let's talk about the first team that I'm looking forward to see this season, and I'll start with a team in the Eastern Conference, and this team shouldn't be a big surprise. And some of these teams I put on the board shouldn't be a big surprise because I have been talking about how I'm looking forward to seeing them this season, and that of course is Inter Miami. Everybody probably are interested to see how Inter Miami does because of the hypes around this team. We know that this offseason they have been kind of known more of a team that's been linked with a million player, and yet they still haven't signed that big name kind of player that they were hoping to get. Although I think they're getting very close when I've been hearing rumor that they are working on a deal to try to get Rodolfo Pizarro from Rayados to Inter Miami, and that might be their big name DP that they're going to sign. Obviously, I know there are going to be some fans that are going to be a little bit disappointed that if that's the big name player that is going to join Inter Miami, they feel like it's kind of a little bit of a letdown when they were rumored with the likes of Cavani, Suarez, and Modric, which, by the way, I think there's still a rumor with Cavani, and they still are talking to see whether or not if he does come to MLS, although that's very unlikely because of the way the transfer window in Europe is closed right now. But yeah, I mean, this first season should be very interesting, and these next couple of weeks depend on what other signing that Inter Miami gets could really define what their season is going to look like. And it kind of seems harsh to say it like that, but when you look at the squad that they had, which I think the squad they have right now isn't bad, but there's definitely still some missing pieces, and obviously the biggest missing pieces is those 2 DP spots that they need to fill out, and one of them has to be that big name player that everybody feel like Inter Miami is going to get. And in some way, David Beckham have already kind of said that he is going to bring that big name kind of player to Inter Miami, and we shall see who exactly that is going to be in these next couple of weeks. Now, at number 2, I'm going to go with another Eastern Conference team, and this team is also from Florida. And that, of course, is the team that I've been calling as the champion of the offseason, Orlando City. So the reason why I've been calling them the champion of the offseason is because, well, they have done a lot to improve that squad. I mean, they have most of the signings that they have made this offseason has involved a lot of what Oscar Pereira visioned this team to be like, and I really love what they have done, and I really love what Oscar Pereira has done in terms of bringing all these players that he thinks will fit in this team. And I'm going to be interested to see whether or not if this is finally the season that they can end that curse and finally be the season where for the first time in their franchise history able to make it to the playoffs, because after all, Orlando City is only one of two teams that have yet to make the playoffs in their in their franchise history. The other, of course, is FC Cincinnati, but obviously FC Cincinnati has only been in the league for 1 year, so we can pretty much put kind of an asterisk in terms of that. And they currently have the longest playoff active drought of any team in MLS at 5 years. So we'll see if this is finally the year that they can break out of that drought, and that is this. All the offseason move that they've been making this season has been great, but we saw this happen a couple of years ago, and we thought that this was finally the year that they can break the curse, and it turns out that year they finished 10th in the Eastern Conference. So yeah, as much as I know Orlando City fans are optimistic about what this season would be like for their team and that they could finally make the playoffs, just to let you know that until they are started to perform and they are able to just find some consistency, which has been a problem for this team for the last couple of years. Well, last year especially, how they were a very inconsistent team, and then the last couple of years were a team that started strong but then just kind of fell apart in the middle of the season. Hopefully this year is the year where they can at least find some consistency and that they can at least be good all around and not just be inconsistent throughout the season. Now, at number 3 is going to be the Chicago Fire. And I'm going to say the Chicago Fire is kind of like in a situation similar to where the Vancouver Whitecaps was last season, where, this is a team with a new ownership, new GM, new coach, moving back to Soldier Field, even their new logo brand, which I know there's still people complain about that logo, but as I said before many times, let it go. I know it looks ugly, but you're just going to have to deal with it, and that at the end of the day, logo likeness is not the way to get you to the playoffs. But, with the Fire, since this is kind of like a new era for them, and that, I'm kind of a little bit concerned with the fact that, I know they have started to get a couple of signing done, but they still need more. Consider they just completely stripped this team down to the bone last season, and they got rid of so many players from last season that, they definitely still need some replacement in the squad. And when you look at the squad right now, I still don't think they're ready in terms of competing to potentially make the playoffs. And playoffs is definitely a goal for this team, because after all, this whole new era that the Chicago Fire is in is for them to get success and move away from the decades that they had in the previous, where it was really a dark period for the Chicago Fire and probably the roughest decade for their team. So yeah, hopefully they can start maybe sign a couple of more players, and that this team could maybe be competitive if they can get a couple of more reinforcement heading into these last couple of weeks. Now, at number 4 is going to be DC United. So DC United, when you look at what they've done in the offseason, they definitely have made some big acquisition in terms of the attack. So, after this offseason where they say goodbye to Wayne Rooney and Lucho Acosta, they bring in the likes of Edison Flores, Julian Gresso, and also bring back Emil Assad back in the team, which, just a disclaimer, I actually kind of mentioned that DC, if they're going to find an attacking piece, why not bring back Emil Assad back in the team? And it seemed like maybe DC kind of listened to me, and that immediately in this offseason they brought Emil Assad back in this team, and this time they're able to get him on a permanent deal. So he's not going to be there on loan, and that he's going to be there for the entire season, unless if they decided to either cut him in the middle of the season, which is highly unlikely, or if there's going to be a transfer offer from somewhere else that they might trade him to somewhere else. But he's going to be there permanently, and yeah, I mean, when you look at this DC team, this is definitely much better of a DC team from last season. And that, last season, one of the biggest issue for DC was surprisingly goal scoring. And when you look at the squad that they had from last season, you wouldn't think goal scoring should be a big issue when you have the likes of Lucho Acosta, Lucas Rodriguez, and even Wayne Rooney. But they really lack scoring goals the previous season. This season, I think they could definitely fix that. Although my big question with DC, as much as they have added so much attacking option and have replaced some of the old attacking core that they had, my question still with this team is that, when you look at the striker position, they only have, I believe, Ola Kamara as their striker option. And the question is that, I know Ola Kamara is a decent striker. He's proven that he can score double-digit goal, but can he actually discover that form that he had with the Galaxy and Columbus, and can he be kind of like the Wayne Rooney guy that is able to bang that goal? And I think he could definitely do that when you look at the support that he's going to get, and especially when you look at the other creative player on this team that will definitely set up some good balls to him to be able to put it in the back of the net. I mean, Ola Kamara is one of the most lethal finisher in this league, and as long as if you put the ball in a good spot where he can put the ball into the back of the net, that is definitely going to be a great bonus. And when you look at this team, and especially how much attacking force that they had and even in the creative department, they definitely have that enough of that to able to create some good opportunity for Ola Kamara to basically, his responsibility is just put the ball into the back of the net. So I'm very excited to see how DC is going to look like this season. But at number 5, and why not put one more Eastern Conference team in there, and this is a team that I know they actually were ranked number 1 in terms of the team that won the offseason. So MLSsoccer.com actually had a article where they talk about who actually won the offseason and who actually made the biggest move. And all of them say that Columbus was the biggest winner this offseason. Now, the reason why I don't like to make a video talk about the winner of the offseason or who actually won the offseason is because it doesn't really mean anything. Like, yes, you might have made some of the best signing in the offseason, and you might have improved your squad the most in the offseason, and therefore, as I said, that means that they are the champions of offseason. It doesn't mean that they will also be the champion of the regular season. And we've seen before where the champions of the offseason and where teams that feel like they got most of the moves right in the off season out of any other team in the regular season, all those moves turns out to be kind of a failure because we haven't really seen how those moves have made. So in the case of Columbus, certainly MLS feel like they're the champion of the offseason, and it's understandable because they have definitely made some big move during this offseason. One move that they highlight is that Tigres central attacking midfielder that they brought as a DP in Lucas Zellerin, and I think he's going to be the guy that is going to be the creative player on this team and play in that role where Higuain used to be with Columbus. But what I like about this Columbus team is not just because of the offseason move, but I kind of said in the second half of the last season when they really started to pick up again and really kind of dust themselves off after they went on just a historic bad winless run between the middle of the season, that I feel like this could be a very dangerous team heading into next year. Like, obviously I knew last season it was kind of a reshuffle year for them where I didn't expect them to be as good as previous season, and that I feel like they're going to have to go for a little bit of a rebuild. Well, it seemed like they kind of have already done the rebuild, and they've done it so fast that, in the second half of the season, you definitely can see that they have made a lot of progress in terms of this rebuild. Now, having said that, we have seen teams before when they got hot in the second half of the season, and you would think that heading into next season, they would be just as hot as they were in the second half of the season, and that promise that they show in the second half of the season will transition success heading into next season. That doesn't always work like that, and in fact, more times or not, teams that actually have a good second half of the season and kind of gives hopes that give hopes for fans that next season could be just as good as the previous season, where we missed the playoffs but we had a good second half of the season, and that momentum can carry into the next season. That doesn't usually always happen, and more time I said more time or not, it doesn't happen like that. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not, if Columbus, a team that I said last season, I feel like they could be a very dangerous team heading into next year and could be a dark horse, could exactly be like that. Now, moving on into the Western Conference, and I'm actually just going to put number 6 and number 7 in here because it's basically the two LA team. So you got LA Galaxy and LAFC, and I'll start with LAFC. I mean, it's pretty easy to say why I'm looking forward to see this team this season, because they are the most entertaining team in the league. Like, there is no doubt that LAFC is going to be favored again to pretty much all of the match that they're going to be playing this season, and that once again they're going to be favored of winning Supporters Shield, because as much as I know a lot of teams have made moves to maybe try to get to LAFC level, I still think LAFC is so far apart from the rest of the league, and in terms of the quality that they had from last season, I think even if they're gonna bring if teams have tried to kind of improve the quality and tried to close the gap between themselves and LAFC, I just don't think it's gonna be enough, and that I think LAFC is gonna be just as good as they did last season, and that they also kind of got younger in terms of some of the quality that they have, and they have brought in a couple of young DP South American player in their squad that I think could be very decent for this team. There's no doubt that this is going to be, once again, a very entertaining team to watch, and it's going to be a team that's going to be just as good as they were from the previous season and also in their inaugural season. And as for the Galaxy, the reason why I am looking forward to see this team isn't because I'm looking forward to see them fail, even though I am a fan of the rival for the Galaxy. And I know some people will also say, well, I'm looking forward to see them because they got Chicharito, and I wonder how Chicharito is going to perform in this league. That's part of it. The one thing that I'm actually most looking forward to see with the Galaxy, besides seeing how Chicharito does in this league, is the defense of this team. Because I guarantee you that if this Galaxy team defense have shown no improvement from the previous season, I guarantee you this team will not go deep into the playoffs. And I know MLS is a league that is moving toward focus on the attacking part, but just because the league is moving toward a direction where teams are focused on the attack doesn't mean you can just ignore the fact that you don't have to have a good defense. And when I look at some of the acquisition that the Galaxy have made, I mean, they obviously bought this guy from Stuttgart called Emmanuel Insu to trying to maybe shore up their defense, but other than that, they hasn't really improved the defense one bit, and that makes me very nervous about how they are going to do next season in terms of defending. Like, this could really be a team where they could have a sexy attack going forward, but at the back they could be very vulnerable. And we saw throughout last season that when you have a sexy attack but you're very vulnerable in your defensive area, that doesn't mean that you are going to, you're going to be winning games like 4-3 or 5-4, and you're going to really entertain your fans by having those games, but it's not going to be a recipe where you want to bring that into the playoffs, and especially in the playoffs when things get a little bit tighter, and when teams don't usually concede a lot of goals and that you have a defense that is just wide open and teams can take advantage of that, that could be a huge issue. And we saw it with the Galaxy last season in the playoffs, where as soon as they were playing against LAFC, and I know they obviously have the infamous title of never lost to LAFC, but you kind of had a feeling it was going to happen, and especially with a defense that was very questionable heading into the playoffs, and knowing LAFC has basically the best attack in the league, they were just fully exposed in that playoff game where LAFC completely ripped that defense apart. So as long as if the Galaxy doesn't improve their defense, they are not going to go any deeper than they did last season in the playoffs. And yeah, we shall see whether or not if it's going to be that same defense that's conceded a lot of goals, or is there going to be some signs of improvement. Now, the next team that I'm excited to see is actually going to be the Vancouver Whitecaps. Now, the Whitecaps, this is the second season of what should be a long rebuild. Although I would technically say that this is kind of like their first season of a long rebuild, because last season they basically wasted their year of rebuild, and that you can pretty much just throw away last season of how the rebuild worked, because it did not work whatsoever. And I'm pretty sure Whitecaps fan knows that, once again, we are restarting this rebuild, and the last thing the Whitecaps want to do is have a similar resort to last season where, they're on a rebuild, they want to show some progress, and it turns out they aren't able to show some progress, and at the end of the year, they'll finish in the bottom of the Western Conference. Like, they seriously cannot afford to do it this year, because, last year, I guess maybe Whitecaps fan can give the team an excuse, the fact that, it's a new system that they're running, and they pretty much just completely got rid of everybody and basically put in some new guys in there and hope to see if it worked. It didn't quite work out. Now we kind of learn from our mistake of some of the moves that we tried to make to maybe replace some of the old core that we had that didn't work. And now that we learned from our mistake, we're going to try to sign a couple of players that will fit better in those systems. And, I think the big signings that they have done this offseason is getting Lucas Cavallini, who is supposedly be the guy that is going to be the goal scorer, and supposed to be the guy that is probably going to be the answer in terms of the goal scoring problem with this team. I mean, last season, besides the fact that they were horrible on defense, they couldn't score a lot of goals last season. I mean, they didn't even have anybody that was score above 10 goals last season. So they hope that Cavallini will be the guy that will carry that. But I just have a fear that, if they're just too rely on him and they don't have any other goal scorer to basically put a little bit toll off of him, that is not going to really improve this Whitecaps attack. But I'm still very interested to see how this rebuild is going to go, and that, I also trust that Marc Dos Santos will eventually get things right. I know this season he's going to have more pressure in terms of getting this right than last season. I mean, last season was him just kind of figuring out his job, but this season I feel like he's going to feel the pressure of eventually getting this rebuild right, because if he does not get this rebuild right and show some progress of this rebuild that the Whitecaps are in, he could really be in danger of getting out of that job. The next team that I'm going to say that I am looking forward to this season is going to be Sporting KC. And for Sporting KC, I have no doubt that, last season, it was the first season where they did not make the playoffs, and it kind of feels very strange to see that Sporting KC wasn't in the playoffs, because they basically made the playoff every single year ever since the turn of the decade. But it was the first time they missed the playoffs, and a lot of the big reason why they missed the playoffs was because of the CCL hangover and the injuries that they had, and also their back line was just absolutely garbage. Now, this offseason, I haven't really seen them address that back line issue a lot, but they certainly have tried to upgrade in terms of the attack. Obviously, the most notable name is getting Alan Pulido from Chivas, which I'm not bitter. As a Quakes fan, I'm not bitter at all in terms of that move. I mean, I'm no no. Some people will think I'm bitter with that move, but I'm not. It is what it is. I mean, in some way, I'm kind of a little bit disappointed that the Quakes did not sign him. But to say that I'm very jealous the fact that Sporting KC is able to get them, and I'm just absolutely bitter the fact that he's played for Sporting KC instead of the Quakes. That is not what I kind of mean, and that is not that is I'm not really bitter about that. Now that could potentially change if he does start scoring a lot of goals, and that yeah, this is gonna be another one of those what if Quakes moves that that the Quakes would think about. If they would have got Polito, would they also get like a 10 or 15 goal score that I think Sporting KC might get out of him? But it's also the fact that I think Peter Vermees would do better in terms of getting the best out of the squad. Like last season, I think a lot of the reason why he didn't do well with the squad was most of the squad was either spent time on the IR, or the fact that by the time they would try to make a late playoff push, they basically fell into the same victim category as TFC when they made that deep CCL run and then just kind of stall out in the end. So no doubt this season they don't have to worry about CCL, and that they can of course start fresh, and that hopefully with them not having as much injuries as they did last season, this team will get back to being one of the best team in the Western Conference. And again, signing Alan Polito is going to be a big case of that, because for the first time, I think, since they had Dom Dwyer on their team, they actually have a striker that can be a goal scorer, and that I think this is finally the time where Peter Vermees finally realized that, yeah, you do need a number 9 in this league if you want to be successful. I mean, for so long he tried to neglect that, but I think he finally realized it, and now he's going to get a number 9 that is known to score a ton of goals. And at number 10, in terms of the last team that I am looking forward to seeing this season, is none other than the Colorado Rapids. And I can also just say that the Rapids, if there is a third team that I would willing to support in MLS, it would be the Colorado Rapids. I mean, watching them last season was just so fun to see, of how they started out so poor in the season, but the fact that they had just a crazy second half of the season, and that it feels like they were on elimination for every single week in that last month of the season, and the fact that they were able to stay alive until the very last day of the season before getting eliminated was just absolutely amazing. And I am one of those guys that love to have an underdog story, and I feel like the Rapids last season was that underdog story, and this season they definitely should be much better than they are last season, and they have definitely made some good off-season signing. I mean, they secured Lawless Abubakar loan on into a permanent signing from Columbus. They also got Austin Trusty from the Union, and the biggest signings that they have done this offseason is getting that number 10 that I thought was the missing piece of what I really think could make this Rapids team being a competitive team. And they of course got that number 10 that they got was Jonas Nemil, that I believe they got him for about $1 to $2 million. And that move, as much as I'm glad that the Rapids finally may have just find the final piece of their puzzle to be a competitive team, I'm still kind of skeptical of whether or not if Jonas Nemia is going to be that creative player that will take the Rapids to the next level. Because if he's going to be that creative number 10 player and be that guy that is going to be the playmaker of the team, then there's no doubt the Rapids are going to be competing in the playoffs. Like, when you look at everywhere, maybe besides the goalkeeping position, because, Clint Irvin, he's going to have a lot of shoes to fill in Tim Howard to try to be a decent goalkeeper. But when you look at everywhere else, they pretty much have good performance everywhere else. Their defense looks very solid. Their midfield also look very solid. The attack, they have Kai Kamara as their main goal scorer. They even have some young upstarting player like Cole Bassett and Andre Shinyashiki in their team, this team can definitely compete for the playoffs into next season. But the one thing that I hope that they won't do heading into the beginning of the season, and the one thing that will definitely could derail their chances of making the playoffs, is get off to a bad start. They cannot afford to do that this season. Like last season, as much as I love their underdog story, I keep repeating that if only they didn't get off to that bad start, if only they didn't get that historic 12-game winless run to start the season, this team would have absolutely made it to the playoffs last season. And it's not just me saying that, but when you even look at the stats and the facts that even if they win like 1 or 2 games out of that 12-game winless run, they would have actually made it to the playoffs as a 7 or even a 6 seed. So hopefully this season they won't get off to a bad start, and that they can continue to do what they did in the second half of the season, and that is of course be one of the best team in the league and had an amazing run. But we shall see whether or not if that is going to be the case. But that being said, I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. Like I said, I am going to start doing previews for every single team, which means that I'm going to preview all 26 teams, and the format I'm gonna do is probably gonna talk about the team's record from last season, talk about the ins and outs of the offseason, which player is now in with this team, and which player the team of course signed, and which player was denied of his option, or which team of course cut their option, which player had their option declined by their respective team. And I will also talk about who I think is going to be the top goal scorer, the playmaker, and the surprise package of this season. And then I will also talk about what I am looking forward to this team, similar to what I'm doing in this video. And I will also ask one big question that I still have with this team. So that's kind of like what the format of what I'm going to do with the preview. I'll probably explain that again when I actually start doing the preview for all 26 teams heading into this season. But yeah, either way, hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.